Our next candidate tonight is Dave McCarthy. So Dave, come on up. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave McCarthy. I'd like to speak a little bit on the format that Mark has set up. I think it's a great example for other candidate nights. I'll try to stick to it with a little biography, a little experience, and then my platform issues. I grew up in Howes Neck as a young kid. We were down there in the 60s, 70s, and it was a great place to grow up. I'm 57 years old. I live over here by the cemetery. My wife Rosie grew up in Quincy Point. So when we hooked up, we had a Quincy Point Howes Neck marriage that has worked out pretty well. I'm the father of 8 children, along with Rose, who range in age from 25 down to 11. They've all gone through the Quincy Public School System, Merrymount, Broadmeadows, and Quincy High School. And it was a phenomenal run in those 3 schools. I had one daughter who defected and went over to the great Norfolk Aggie High School. And I have 3 little ones now that currently are at South Shore Collaborative, which is a special needs school down in Hingham. Not to say we had our hands full, but my wife and I, we chose Quincy when we got married 32 years ago as the place to bring up our kids. I currently am the Director of Security for General Dynamics, located out in Westwood. The shipyard's not open again, so no one get excited. But we support a lot of Navy and Marine Corps, the agencies out of Westwood. It's a 7,000 person division, and I've been with them for 34 years. In the middle of the General Dynamics career and bringing up my family in 2002, 2003, I made a decision to run for Quincy School Committee, and I was successful. Had a good run on the school committee from 2004 to 2015, and I held various chairmanships on that committee. Vice chairman of the committee for a few years as it rotates, and the other chairmanships, facilities and security, budget, health and safety, to name a few. The school committee was a great stepping stone for me to get involved 17 years ago or so into Quincy politics and into Quincy itself. Along the way with the kids, I coached them in basketball and baseball at St. John's and Quincy Youth, basketball and baseball also, and had a great run here in the city. And we knew that this was a place that if you were going to get involved and go further and want to go further to help, this was the place to be. Along with the Quincy School Committee, when it ended in 2015, I currently sit on the Board of Governors at Quincy College. I sit on the Board of Directors for South Shore Mental Health, and I also sit on the Board of Trustees for the Carroll Center for the Blind up in Newton. Also, a few years back, and even before that, under the Phelan administration, but recently under the Koch administration, I'm on the Citizens Advisory Downtown Committee for the downtown. I sit on it with Mayor Walter Hannon, now president of the Chamber of Commerce. It'll probably be Tim Cahill, and Marilyn Manning, a past representative of the Chamber. And it's a very worthwhile committee so that the citizens and the Chamber and some of the folks that sit around Quincy, the Quincy area, and live around the Quincy area can see what's going on. One of the things I want to touch on, and I know my opponents have touched a little on issues in Quincy, but I really want to talk a lot about Ward 1. I know that the downtown is out there and everybody knows that we need to keep that going. And it looks like it's turned the corner, but just to get you for a few seconds here, I just want to go over a few of my platform items that I want to talk about in Ward 1. And number one of the things that I've seen out there, and I think it was mentioned maybe both by Joe and by Dan, is the paving of the streets and the sidewalks. We've got a lot of work down in Howes Neck in regards to some of the side streets, Charles, Bell, Wall, Darrow, Rock Island, that need some TLC. and need it soon. Merrymount, I've asked a lot of folks up in this area what their issues were, and they brought up a lot of the issues that we talked earlier about, and Mark brought up as questions, the cut-throughs. And you know, one of the things I've noticed, because I've knocked a lot of doors up in this area, is this road here. And one of the things that I'd do if I got elected, we'd have a community meeting to talk about the cut-throughs with the neighbors and find out all the ins and outs and who's for it and against it. But Shore Ave leads it down here to Virginia and Victoria, which people cut around Merrymount School and then end up coming down Norton Road rather, and out by Broad Meadows to miss all the traffic on C Street. And Squanto Road's another road where they take the left at the lights and go down Squanto, and I was down there, it was like a freeway one day between 4 and 6. Briefly stopping at stop signs and moving right along. So one of the items that I'd bring up is first ask the neighbors what they thought, and then second, move forward if they wanted to, and stop the traffic coming in during the rush hour hours, 4 to 6, 3 to 6, whatever worked. But that's one of the things in Merrymount that jumped out at me. One of the big things that I think I bring, along with a lot of experience, is my work with budgets. Not only at General Dynamics, where I deal with $1 million budgets every year, but we dealt with the $100 million budget in the school committee, which has now blossomed, I think, to $300 million for the city. And I'm very well broken in on municipal finances and how things work and how things can get done. The drug addiction, the opioid addiction. First thing I do is try to go and find out the source, where it's coming from in Quincy, in Ward 1. If Ward 1's gonna be the ward that I take care of, I'd immediately sit with the chief, Lieutenant Glenn, the drug task force, and start talking about what's happening in the neighborhoods, almost like a neighborhood watch, to find out from people, see something, say something, and find out where it's happening. A lot of you folks will see people coming and going out of houses, and these people never really turn into neighbors, but something's going on in the house. Now, I don't think the police will react on every call, but I think it's something that I could look at with the police and talk about putting together a program that's basically like a neighborhood watch that talks about issues that are going on down in House Neck, Germantown, Merrymount, Adams Shore, and Quincy Center. Remember when I was on the school committee, it spanned for 12 years. So there's a lot of young men that I knew that are now adults that live down here. And they're great sources of telling me and coming to me and confiding in me what's going on, what's right and what's wrong. And over a decade of meeting these young men and young women in Quincy that pretty much have stayed here in Quincy, it's a good source to work with. So that would be one thing I'd want to sit with the police. Overdevelopment. Really against overdevelopment. I mean, every parcel of land we have looks like if it's big enough to put something in there like a condo, a 3-family, let's go get a variance and stick it in. Now, it'll work in the downtown, it'll work in areas where you have the high rises and the development, but not down in the Merrymount area. There was one that was going on, I think at 308 C Street in Wampatuck, that I think came to a stop. I think Margaret was involved in that, and it's just not for us. 10 years ago when they were developing, we'd probably say okay. Now it's gotten out of control. So those are a few things I wanted to touch on. I know Mark's getting up, giving me the look, but it's all in the handout that I think a lot of you folks had. And another big one is the C Street traffic. You know, we got to look at the lights. We got to look at the bus stops. We got to look at the way things flow through that intersection at Fox and Hounds. And I know Margaret's been fighting with that for years also, but I'd pick right up and start fighting again because it's busy and people do abuse C Street with speed. So with that, I will sign off. I think I'll get a few questions. I want to thank Mark for all his work here last week and this week, and for everybody who took papers out to run. Thank you.
All right, Dave, thank you for that. A couple questions here for you. We've got about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
What's your plan and position on environmental issues such as rising sea levels and coastal erosion in the Ward 1 area?
Well, I think one of the things that I witnessed over the course of my tenure as an elected official is that with the 27 miles of coastline, that folks like Margaret, PJ Foley, other environmentalists that are down here, I think more meetings and more education to a lot of people on different marshlands that we have here. The Broad Meadows restoration was one, but we can see as we get on the coastline that things are changing. One thing that I think I would want to do with that, and that's a great subject, is to sit down with these folks that can tell you, like a PJ Foley and others, what the issues are and what we need to do now to get in front of it. I can't claim to be an environmental specialist, but I love the water. I grew up on 29 C Ave down in Great Hill. It was wonderful, and you hate to see any of that get ruined, any of it here in Ward 1.
How would your approach to serving as a Ward 1 City Council member differ, if at all, from our current Ward 1, Margaret LaForest?
Well, I think one thing that it's big shoes to fill is the communication end of things, where Margaret has been so good with people over the years, getting the word out. I would try to mimic really what Margaret did in that regard. But also one of the things that I think that I would like to do is everybody has their own neighborhood, their own pride. Merrymount, Howe's Neck, Quincy Point, Quincy Center, Adams Shore, Germantown, and line up active community meetings, regardless, every couple of months, down in the areas, down in Snug Harbor, and hear the problems from the folks that are down in G-Town, that are in Adams Shore, that are up in Quincy Point and Neck, Merrymount. So more community involvement, and with me, more face-to-face. I'm much better talking, sitting down and talking to folks face-to-face. So that would be a little different, I think. Margaret's had a lot of community meetings. I'd try to step it up.
Can you look at any votes that the City Council has taken and say, you know, I would have taken a different position on a specific issue? Anything off to the top of your head on that?
No, I know that Dan brought up the $80 million garage, the bond, to start getting involved in that. But, you know, being on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the downtown, I kind of have an advantage of listening to the mayor and planning director Jim Fatsies and company on what's needed down there. If they're going to turn Quincy Center into something that we all can be proud of, they're gonna need to spend some money. Now, I wasn't there to look at an $80 million bond and get the ins and outs, but I think it's necessary. And you know, I think I would have voted in favor to keep moving that forward. Again, I'd have to look at the ins and outs. I'm thinking of anything that Margaret was involved in down here in Ward 1. I surely wouldn't change anything she did in regards to the flood zones. You know, championed that, and that's a huge thing, and that would be something that I'd pick up and try to continue. But I'd pretty much stay the course. If I do think of something that I would have differed with Margaret, I'll bring it up. But right now, I don't think so. I think she's done a great job.
Okay. Could I hear your perspective on Father Bill's, its location, its future?
Yeah, I think Joe said he was down there, Joe Murphy. I also was down there, and know that neighborhood very well, being not too far away from my home up there by the cemetery on Whitney Road. It's time for Father Bill's to move out of there and probably get a little bit larger. Joe talked about programs. I totally disagree with them opening up the doors and just letting everybody out. And then everybody ends up on the library lawn, they end up on the track, they end up on the high school steps. But they don't have any place to go. And I'm all for helping. And they have some great people that work hard down at Father Bill's. One of the things that we talked about was relocation. And I said, well, you know, they want something bigger. And they also mentioned to me that they were looking to talk to the mayor about a regional deal, possibly with Braintree and with Weymouth, because a lot of the times in Father Bill's, if you take a show of hands, there's not many Quincy folks in Father Bill's. Sometimes it's Weymouth, Braintree, it's the South Shore. So why not have the South Shore chip in? Why don't we look at it that way so that we could put them somewhere, possibly Father Bill's, I'm thinking away from neighborhoods and the congestion. Sometimes when you're going by that car wash and you're going by the police station, they're walking right out in the middle of the street. So maybe down near the shipyard, near a bus route, maybe somewhere else totally. But I think it's time for Father Bill's to get bigger. I know funding is always the problem, but they talked to me down there about possibly creating a 2-story larger building so that folks could still get a bed, get a meal, get in and out of the cold, but upstairs or downstairs there'd be training rooms, and they'd train them on basic functions to just get them out into the work world. So I'd like to see Father Bill's move. I'd like to see it blossom, grow, put that training component in place. But I would definitely look at that to put that in the proper place.
All right, Dave, we're at 15 minutes, so thank you very much for coming down tonight. Thank you for your thoughts and ideas.